Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and I'm joined today by friend and fellow film buff, Pete.
Hi, guys.
Good to have you here, man. How's your weekend going thus far?
Good to be here. Yeah, not too bad. I'm looking forward to it being a bit cooler. I've had enough of this heat.
Yeah, it's hot enough, isn't it? Apparently, we're going to be getting a whole week of rain. That's what they're saying anyway. Fingers crossed, but all subject to change. You know what British weather's like. It's a big, keeps you on your toes, doesn't it? But
Definitely.
yeah, so what we're going to talk about today is a horror movie that we're both a big fan of, released in 1974, and that is Black Christmas. Which of course is very much considered by many to be a horror classic now. It certainly does have a fan base. It's a cult movie, isn't it? I mean, Black Christmas wasn't the big commercial success that Halloween was. Obviously, it predates it by 4 years. But this is a film that has gone on to receive a lot of acclaim and praise over the years, isn't it?
It has indeed, yes. And I expect to be torched for saying this, but I appreciate it and I love it more than Halloween.
No, that's fair enough. I love both movies, certainly. I do actually think that as much as I love Halloween, Black Christmas is the scarier film. I think Black Christmas is, Now, I'll admit, I mean, this film came out in 1974. It was actually released around Christmas time, 1974. I didn't see this film until I was probably about 13, 14 years old. And this terrified me. I actually saw it. I think it was on Christmas Eve. I think it was actually on Christmas Eve of all nights. And what's that?
Perfect time.
Yeah, exactly. I'd heard of it. I'd heard of the film, but I'd never seen it. And I watched it late one night. It was on about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And it unnerved me. It actually unsettled me. You know, I'm a less is more kind of guy. And what I love about this film is the atmosphere, the emphasis on suspense, and the fact that you actually see very little of the killer. There's kind of an air of mystery to the movie. That's what makes it really kind of stand out. And obviously, I know this Halloween was the big success. This came out 4 years before it, but in a way, this is a film that really kind of set the template for many of these slasher films to follow.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
With a POV, and I know POV existed in Peeping Tom like 1960 and that. But you know, even let's quickly get on the term slasher. Even when Halloween came out, there wasn't a slasher movie out there. The term slasher movie was never used at that point. And even Bob Clark, the director, has actually said he doesn't see Black Christmas as a slasher movie. He sees it as a psychological horror film. He doesn't actually classify it as a slasher film. So did this film scare you then when you first saw it?
Terrified me. Absolutely terrified me. Yes. I was the same age as you. And it was on BBC Two quite near Christmas time, and I recorded it because I was doing an exam at school the next day, and I watched it. My mum and dad were out Christmas shopping one afternoon, and when I got home from the exam, I watched the film in the afternoon, and I got to a point and I thought, I can't watch any more of this. I'm going to have to put it off. I'm in the house myself.
Yeah.
That phone could ring.
That's the thing. The telephone calls are pretty disturbing. That's what really unnerved me when I first watched it. Now, you know, the telephone calls, because in this movie, you don't actually know who the killer is. Now, Bob Clark is actually, obviously, the film leads you to believe as it goes along that Peter is the killer, Jess's boyfriend, played by Keir Dullea. I believe the way he landed this role was after him being seen in 2001: A Space Odyssey, 1968. Classic, great movie. That's what got him attention. But in the film, we don't know the killer. Now, I know Bob Clark has actually come up with the history, the backstory of the killer in this film. But when you watch it, you don't know. You can kind of connect the dots in that, if you will, with some of the telephone calls, and you can kind of build this story in your head. But I know that the 2006 remake, which I really don't like, I don't like swearing on the podcast, so I'm not going to talk about that film too much. But the 2006 remake basically shows it all. You get the whole kind of backstory, and it just completely defeats that air of mystique that the original film had. So, you know, the casting in this film, what did you think too? Because I think she's great, personally. Olivia Hussey as Jess.
Yeah, no, I think she's perfect for the part. You know, she looks vulnerable. She's very convincing as well.
Yeah.
She looks like a real damsel in distress. She looks genuinely scared at times.
Yeah.
And concerned, you know,
Yeah.
as she should be. So, yeah, she ticks all the boxes.
I think, yeah, she can scream.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, she can scream. In that final act where she goes out in the house.
And he pulls her hair at
Yeah.
the banister.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But that moment at the end of the movie, and this shows how moralistic she is as a character, because instead of just running out the door, she finds out that, you know, the calls are coming from inside the house, but she doesn't want to leave her friends there in case they're still alive and that. And she's screaming and answer me, please answer me. And it just shows you. I think Olivia Hussey is an actress that could have been bigger than what she is.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely was, you know, early 19, I think it was 1971, was she not in Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet?
I think that was 1968.
Was that earlier than that?
Yeah, I think it was late 60s. Yeah, she played Juliet. I remember seeing that at secondary school. We had to watch that. John Saxon, a very veteran actor, of course.
Excellent actor, yeah.
Only cast at the last minute, I believe, as well. He was kind of a last-minute casting. I know that... his name is escaping me now. Malcolm Mcdowell, I believe it was. Malcolm Mcdowell was offered the role of Peter.
Yeah, was he?
Yeah, and actually turned it down because he actually didn't think the film was going to be a success at all. I know, and even the role of Miss Mac, one of the characters, you know, obviously the old sorority mum that's the alcohol. Even this film has a dark tone. There is humour. There are definite injections of humour in this film.
Yeah, and then you've got Margo Kidder as well, who is just
foul-mouthed Barb. She's brilliant.
Yeah,
she's great. She is a standout character in this film, and she actually insisted on drinking real alcohol for this film as well.
It was,
yeah. But yeah, Miss Mac was offered to Betty Davis.
Oh, that would never have worked.
A very hard woman to work with, from what I've heard. And Betty Davis actually, she turned it down anyway. But she did later work with Olivia Hussey in Death on the Nile.
That's more suitable.
So, yeah, you know, a really good car. Obviously a Canadian, principally a Canadian. I think there was only, because obviously it's a Canadian film. It was filmed in Toronto. A real sorority house, a real house as well, not a set, giving it a real level of authenticity to it. I think it was a staircase. That was one of the big selling points for that house. Canadian. I think the only 3 people in the film that weren't Canadian were John Saxon. Who are the other 2? Olivia Hussey. She's actually British / Argentinian. And who's the other? There was one other cast member that wasn't actually Canadian, but this was at a period that I think you'll agree with. A lot of great Canadian horror films were coming out.
Yeah, it was definitely.
You know, going into the 80s, certainly My Bloody Valentine, you know, being a Canadian film, and The Changeling, and
and you had Cronenberg as well. I mean, he was really up and coming. You had Shivers, Rabbit, the Brood. So that was a force to be reckoned with there.
Yeah, like the king of surrealistic body horror. Cronenberg. Now, the original title, because this was directed by Bob Clark, who actually, ironically, went on to direct another Christmas film, but a family-friendly Christmas film. I think he directed A Christmas Story.
That's right.
In '83. Quite a contrast to to Black Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the original screenplay for this film, Black Christmas, was it was called Stop Me. That was the original, that was the working title for this film, Stop Me. Then they called it Black Christmas. And I did not know this until recently. They changed the name again because they did not want Black Christmas being seen as a blaxploitation film. The title implying it could be blaxploitation. So they changed it to, I believe it was Silent Night, Evil Night.
Yeah.
But the title didn't really stick, and the title didn't really sell the film too well, so they reverted it back to Black Christmas.
Wasn't it called Stranger in the House as well? I think there was another.
Yes, and do you know what? I only found that out. That was a few days ago. Somebody actually knew it by that title, and I'm like, I've never heard of it called that before. And yeah, you're right. I was completely oblivious to that. But I think the whole Black Christmas as well came on a dark spin on White Christmas, the 1954 film. Just kind of taking it to the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah. No, but it's so fitting. It's so fitting. I mean, I can understand why they might have thought, oh, we better change it, because you had Blackenstein and you had Blackula and Scream Blackula.
And it was around that period, yeah.
And they're thinking, oh, right, we better change this. But no, they stuck to it, so it's good. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a very influential film, as I say. I mean, among die-hard horror fans, Black Christmas is well revered, but it's certainly not a film that's as well known in the mainstream. You know, it hasn't got the big title that Halloween or Friday the 13th has got and whatever.
Sure, no.
But
I think it's very worthy though, you know, because it's so seminal and it established like so much that we've come to accept and take for granted in the subgenre of the slam. It got there first. I mean, I love Halloween, don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore it. But the fact that this film predates Halloween by 4 years.
Yeah.
And as you say so eloquently and correctly, it's far more frightening. It's a far more chilling film than Halloween. Halloween is scary, but this kind of cuts deep. And I think it's the phone calls, it's the unease.
Oh, the killer is scary. Yeah, the killer is scary because the whole clearly like multiple personalities, whatever. The killer in this film is completely and utterly crazed. And that's what's so scary about this killer. And the fact that you don't see much of the killer. You see the hands, you see the shadow, you see the eyeball scene.
The eyeball,
the eye scene is a moment that a lot of people talk about. And I think they don't actually remember, they don't actually remember whose eye was used in that scene. And I think they think it could have been, his name is actually escaping me now, but I think he was the production designer, or the cameraman, sorry. And he actually played Billy during a few of the scenes in the movie. All of the murder scenes was this guy.
Oh, right.
But I don't think they definitively remember if it was his eye that was actually used for that scene.
Reginald someone or something?
I do know his name. His name is. I actually wrote it down. I down. I can't remember where I put the paper.
I'm thinking Reginald. That's maybe not.
It's quite an unusual name, but he was the cameraman. He was one of the cameramen on the film, and he was actually used as Billy for most of the film. So they believe it was actually probably his eye that was used. But yeah, that scene is scary.
Oh, it's a very iconic scene. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it scared me.
I mean, the telephone calls. Okay, the telephone calls are what's really disturbing. Now, I believe that this was one of the earlier mainstream movies, at least, to use the C word, which is actually deemed to be one of the most offensive words in the English language. This film uses it. Now, I know it was cut from the UK release, but from what I understand as well, in the original script, the telephone calls were going to be far less vulgar. And then for, the reaction to get more of a shock effect, They threw in a lot more obscenities, and they were all added post-production. So the women that are answering the calls in that, what they're really listening to is Bob Clark off camera shouting things at them. So yeah, that was all added post-production. There were 3 voices. There were 3 people's voices used for that film. And it was what's that?
That's such a combination, wasn't it? Really,
Yeah.
It's just, so just felt quite surreal. There was something that was almost inhuman about it. You just thought, this is a real monster.
Yeah.
And you start to, you start to think what his background was, and you get the kind of hints based upon the names that he's mentioning.
Yeah. Billy and
it's
Agnes.
Me, Billy, and Agnes, and the baby and stuff, and it's so disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the 3
Reginald Morris. It's just come to me. I think it might have been Reginald Morris.
No,
it was the
not him.
cinematographer.
No,
is it not
no,
him?
not him. As soon as the name's mentioned, I'll remember it. It is kind of an unusual name, though.
Right.
But yeah, the 3 people, Bob Clark, the director's voice was actually used for the phone calls, but the main one was Nick Mansusko.
Yeah.
Probably pronouncing that correct. He was offset, actually. He didn't actually meet any of the cast. He was always offset, but it was just his voice that was used. And I believe an uncredited actress was used for the female voices. There was some yeah. But so yeah, the telephone calls and that, you can kind of like put together, because Bob Clark has said that the killer in this movie, Billy, was actually abused as a boy. I think that kind of stands to reason.
Absolutely does.
Is locked in the attic, eventually kills his parents. He's got a younger sister who he tries killing, but his younger sister gets away. That is the story that I believe Bob Clark has given. Now, we do actually kind of get this, as I said, in the 2006 remake. There are 2 killers in the film. It's Billy and Agnes. But it doesn't come anywhere close. It's a completely and utterly unnecessary remake. And as remakes go, I'm all for a remake if executed okay. But to me, the remake was all about shock value. I just thought it was an absolute mess of a film, personally.
And sometimes the more exposition, the worse it is, because your imagination doesn't get to work.
No, exactly.
If it's doing all the work for you, and if it's spoon feeding you, then the best things that can happen are up here.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lynne Griffin in this film as well, in a very small role. She's the first victim of the movie, isn't she?
Claire, yes.
She was I actually thought she was probably the standout character in a slasher movie called Curtains.
Oh yeah.
Released in '83, and
Canadian as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Canadian as well. Yeah. I know she took on the role. I think her mum was her agent at the time. Lynne Griffin was all up for the film, but she was very disappointed to know that she was killed first. That she didn't really have much in the way of screen time. And I read that Olivia Hussey took it on because she visited a psychic, and the psychic actually told her that this film's going to be a big success. It's going to be a huge catapult for your career. And that's why she took the film on.
And that's why, I read about that. Yeah. Good move.
Yeah, so it was a moderate success. Black Christmas did okay. Critically speaking, no. Critically speaking, Black Christmas didn't go. A lot of these films didn't. A lot of these films were like, especially going into the 80s, were described as being misogynistic, and I think what's his name, George Siskel, the film critic, gave it like a whopping 1.5 out of 4 stars, calling it.
Gene Siskel,
Gene Siskel, sorry. Gene Siskel, yeah. Basically called it a complete mess. But that first murder that we get in the film, and it's an image that lingers with you, because obviously she's killed, isn't she? She's suffocated.
That's right.
And then her body up in the attic, in the rocking chair.
Yes.
And just,
and rocking chairs are frightening anyway.
Yeah.
But for a dead body to be wrapped up in cellophane and rocked at the window with her mouth open. I mean, God.
And what is it? Bye bye, baby bunting. Daddy's gone a hunting.
Oh yes. That will haunt me to the day I die.
Yeah.
That's so frightening.
Actually being rocked by Bob Clark, by the way. It was actually Bob Clark doing the rocking there.
It's a one-man show.
You know the scene where the cat, I can't remember what the cat, Claude, isn't it? I think the cat's called Claude.
Yeah.
And it jumps up on her. They had to put catnip on her to get the cat to actually go up there. And her death, I mean, again, you know, talking about some of the comedic aspects, there's one bit in this film I love, comedy-wise. It's Claire's dad that's looking for her.
Yeah,
and he goes into the poster.
The old woman with the finger.
Well, that as well. Yeah, sorry, that as well. But Miss Mac is trying to hide the picture of the couple having sex. She puts her hand over the picture.
Yes, when she's when she's showing them kind of round the
yes, because she's trying to make it look all idyllic and they're all good girls and all this and that and whatever. And then there's that moment where she swears. I can't remember what she says now, but he just happens to come into shot as she swears.
Well, I won't say it, but she calls the cat a name beginning with P, I think.
Oh yes, she does. Yes.
And and he pops up behind her.
That's correct. So even this film, you know, this film's dark. It manages to throw in some like funny moments. That nothing feels forced.
No. And think about when Barb has had too much to drink again, and she recalls what she witnessed happening in the zoo
with the turtles.
Yeah. And the guy's face, Claire's dad's face, and it's so embarrassing.
She's great. She's absolutely great. I miss Margo Kidder. Margo Kidder was I liked her in basically almost everything I saw her in.
Absolute sweetheart. Yes, I agree.
You know, and obviously she was in Sisters not long before this, and then really hitting the big time with Superman in 1978. But yeah, another character. I mean, we can't talk about comedy in this film without talking. You know the character I'm going to come to, don't you? There is one character really in this film that is only really there for comedic effect, and that's the police officer.
Yeah,
his name is escaping me. Brilliant. I can't think of his name.
He's brilliant, yes, and I can't think of it either.
We get the fellatio joke, don't we?
Yes, we do indeed. And then he gives the game away. He gives the game away of telling where the killer is. He was told not to do it.
Yeah, he doesn't really serve any kind of like real purpose to the plot. In all honesty, he's there for comedic effect, and the whole fellatio joke, because obviously he doesn't get what it means. I mean, believe it or not, I've actually met other adults that don't know what that word means. So
Oh, I know. Let's look it up in the dictionary. I know I had to at that age, certainly, because I had never heard the term, but just the way she addressed it, FE, it's a new exchange.
And
he just fell for it big time.
Now, Art Hindel is in the film, Canadian actor again. Obviously not that much in the way of screen time. He was actually, I didn't realise this, he started dating Lynne Griffin during the filming of this movie. Yeah, they actually got together. And of course, he was in one of my favourite 70s horror films after this. I mean, he countless films to his name, but he was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, wasn't he?
It was indeed, yes. And The Brood later on.
Oh yes, of course, The Brood. 77, I think that wasn't it, The Brood?
79.
Was it 79?
79, The Brood, yeah.
What film am I thinking of, 77 then, that was Cronenberg? Was that Shivers?
Rabid?
Yes, it might have been. Yeah, it might have been Rabid. So obviously, and the murder with Miss Mac. Obviously, we get this whole again. It's quite funny. She's going around the house looking for all the hidden alcohol and all that. We hear the cat meowing, and obviously she goes up there and she gets what is it? It's like what would you call it? Is it like
some what that kills her?
Yeah.
like it's like a kind of, I don't know, it's like a pulley.
It's like a hook thing, isn't it? It's like a
hook,
yeah,
some kind of hook mechanism.
yeah. You see his hands, don't you, with a POV and
some hoist or something. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
You know, and then he gets up in the legs. That's all you see going up the hatch, you know?
Yeah. And that's what I like about this film, actually, is that because I know originally the original script, it was intended to be more graphic. And it was actually Bob Clark, you know, they decided, no, let's have it a little more subdued, you know, make it creepier, more of an emphasis on suspense. But originally it was going to be more brutal, gorier. You know, the death in the movie that really stands out to me is Barb's death with the glass unicorn.
I agree with you.
It's a slasher movie, but that's the only real kind of slashing, stabbing, if you will, that we actually see in this movie. That image of him stood above her bed, and we just kind of get them. We see the eye, don't you, and part of the hair and that just stood above her.
I think that's beautifully. It's like a Giallo-esque.
It is,
because you've got the juxtaposition of the murder and the children carol singing at the door, and the death in slow motion. You see the unicorn, the ornament being, you know, raised, lowered, the children singing, and then it ends on Olivia Hussey clapping them. Unbeknownst to her friend's been murdered upstairs. It's so spine tingling.
Yeah, and they obviously they can't hear her screams, can they, because of the Christmas caroling, which I believe kind of dates back to actually an urban legend. I can't recall which one, but this movie is essentially one big urban legend. The urban legend of the babysitter and the cooler inside the house. This movie is a 97, 98 minute urban legend. Now, we got that as an opening segment to When a Stranger Calls in 79. But this whole movie plays on the entire idea of it. And, obviously, I think that urban legend's been around for a long time. And, it's a scary concept. Now, there's other murders in the film. Now, her name is escaping me. I can't think of her name. It's Jess's best friend in the film, and she actually returned for the 2006 remake.
Was it Andrea Martin?
Andrea Martin, that's it. Yeah. Because obviously she discovers Barb, and obviously her death is actually off screen. We don't see her killed. Just like the police officer in the car. We know he's got a slit throat, but we don't actually see his death.
Oh, Jennings, that's right. Throat's cut, lying in the car,
Yeah. Now, with Pete, obviously, there's a subplot in this film, isn't there? She's pregnant. Jess is pregnant. And Pete, obviously, wants an abortion. He wants her to keep the baby. And that's where you kind of put two and two together. There's certain lines of dialogue. There is a line of dialogue that the killer comes out with over the phone that Pete said. And that's where she starts to suspect him.
That's right. Having a what removed?
That's right. And there is a moment, isn't there? I'm sure you've noticed it, where she's on the phone and you can actually see the shadow of the killer, or at least someone behind her, while they're on the telephone, and disappears. So that
beautifully done. Very subtle, but extremely effective.
Yeah. The ending to the film is, I actually love the ambiguous ending. I know some people don't. I've actually spoken to some people that don't like the fact that it's kind of open-ended, if you will. I know that there were originally there were two endings that they wanted. One was she survives, one she actually gets killed, but neither one of them was filmed. So they actually left it in an ending that's ambiguous. So obviously, we come to learn Pete's not the killer. It certainly looks like he is near the end of the movie, but he's not the killer. Presumably, did she kill Pete, or did the killer kill him?
I think she killed him.
In self-defense?
Self-defense, yeah. I think so. That's my take on it, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the question I have for you is, now I know there's a sequel, which is a YouTube video, very good. I'm not sure if you've seen it, man. It's called It's Me, Billy.
Do you know I haven't?
I would highly recommend it. It's about 40 minutes long. It's a sequel. It's essentially a sequel to Black Christmas, and it's actually much better than that 2006 remake we got. Yeah, that's true. It's very much in the spirit of the original film. Now, obviously, I like with Halloween, actually, it shows you much of where the action's taken place during the film. You know, the camera pans through room to room, and then it goes up, and we see the light come on. The killer's up there, wasn't Pete. And the telephone starts ringing, which I think is great. Now, the question is, do you think she's going to
die? Well, yes, I think she will. Yeah, I think he will. That was one criticism that the film had from a lot of people, is the fact that the police abandoned the whole crime scene.
That's the thing that doesn't make sense, yeah.
And left the girl in the house herself.
Yeah.
Even though you wouldn't. More or less, that wouldn't have happened. That would not happen.
No,
the only thing, it's just because it's Christmas time, you're thinking, oh, well, they maybe wanted to get away for the holidays, you know.
Yeah.
It's questionable.
Yeah. You wouldn't, you know, you would take her to a hospital, surely. I mean, you'd think that she's been through presumably an ordeal and that, but for the purpose of the movie to have that ending that we get, I guess it was necessary. But I really like that ending, and then the telephone just starts ringing, and we just don't know. And there is another slasher movie. I don't want to get too much off topic. There's another slasher movie that I was never that keen on its ending, because the way it ends, it kind of ends abruptly for me. But the more I've watched it, the more I've come to like it. And that's House on Sorority Row.
Yeah, I've not seen that in a long, long time.
Well, the killer goes falling down. I mean, we know now, you know, audiences are savvy. The killer probably ain't dead, you know. And I think she's up there. That's it. She's drugged. So she's going to pass out very soon. And the killer's eyes open. And then it ends. The movie ends.
Right. I remember that now.
Yeah, so I kind of felt cheated for a long time. I thought to myself, well, come on, you know, it's got to go beyond this, surely. But I've come to like ambiguous endings a little bit more. You can kind of make it up in your own mind. You know, not everything's got to be spoon-fed to you, and you know. So yeah, I've come to like that ending more. Now with Black Christmas as well, I actually find the music, the very kind of underlying score, quite creepy.
I do. Yeah, it's really, because I mean the use of the whole piano as well, but it's not the piano, it's actually just the strings. It's almost like, you know, they're being plucked, you know, or things are being dropped on them, you know, because it's that kind of dissonance, you know. It's really quite penetrating and just chills you, you know, but it's very well done. Very effective.
I agree. It's a very kind of understated score. So, you know, it's not like the instantly recognizable Halloween score or, you know, whatever or anything like that. But it works. It really works. Perfectly complements the movie. You know, another film where I think I think music always plays an important part is The Shining. The music that's used throughout that film is so effectively scary.
I just need to hear it and I get goosebumps. I know exactly what you mean, especially the opening credit scene. I think it's incredibly effective.
Oh, the overture, I love the opening. Yeah, we get the whole what do you call it? Kind of the glide across the mountains, and
that's right.
It's fantastic. I'm going to ask you actually, what's that?
Just the voices, but even the way the credits come on.
Yeah,
you know, they rise up.
Yeah,
you know, everything is just really weird about it, and it sets the scene perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. Now, I'm going to ask you, have you seen, because this is a film I refuse to watch, have you seen 2019's Black Christmas?
I have not. No. Totally avoided it like the plague.
I saw the trailer to it, and there was nothing. There was nothing in that trailer that made me think, do you know what, I want to watch this. For one, we've already had one remake, okay? Now, this is not a remake per se. Basically, what they've done is they've just slapped Black Christmas on the film as a selling point, if you will. It's not Black Christmas. They could have called this anything else. It basically looks like, go too much off topic here, but it kind of looks like it's a poster campaign for girl power. Black Christmas film. It's don't get me wrong, I'm all for strong females in films. Hell, we've had loads over the years. Look at Sarah Connor, look at Ripley and whatever. But this film seems to be bashing you across the head with girl power, feminism, and I can't believe they actually reveal who the killers are in the trailer as well.
Goodness sake.
They actually show the killer. They show it off. And yeah, and do you know, it's a Blumhouse film, surprise, surprise. And I actually don't think Blumhouse had much faith in the movie themselves, because I didn't even know the film was coming out until about 2 months after it came out. We only got a trailer about 2 months before release, and I think they didn't really spend much marketing because they just kind of knew that they probably didn't have a very good film on their hands here.
Yeah, doesn't sound like it. It sounds very contrived and, you know, lacking subtlety as well. If you know, they're trying to get their point across about strong women. I mean, you've only got to think back to as far back as the Alien, you know, when,
exactly.
And you didn't even realise, oh wow, yeah, it was only a woman that survived, and by God, she was really strong, you know. But
yeah,
you know, they done it in such a subtle way that people didn't actually realise.
Yeah,
you know? and that's the way to do it.
Yeah, even before then, you could say like Marilyn Burns from Texas. I know you're not a big fan, but Texas Chainsaw, she escapes. You know, she actually she fights, she escapes. But we are in that era now of political correctness and whatnot, and that's what this film looks to be. A lot of commentary about political correctness. I'm just put off. I have no interest in it. I didn't like the 2006 remake. I really didn't like that. I'll be honest, I wasn't completely against, because I thought to myself, do you know what? I'll give it the chance. I'll give it a chance. It might be okay, because I do think there are some good horror movie remakes out there. I do think there are some. Yes. This was not.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, this was just not one of them. But it does do a good job of capturing the Christmas spirit, I guess, if you will, the whole festive thing. But that's about it. So with Black Christmas then, so I'm guessing for you, because I think we've talked about this before, one of the scariest scenes for you was the eyeball scene.
Yeah. I think, that whole scene, especially when she's going up the staircase and then she discovers Barb and Phil have been killed.
Yeah.
She knows she's on her own. She sees the eyeball. She runs down the stairs. The killer makes contact with her, pulls her hair, you know, towards the banister. And that scene is, I would say, that's the standout scary scene for me.
And the killer is proper scary. I mean, the killer is all this screaming, like when he goes on that like rampage in the attic and he's knocking everything about, and he's. I'm not going to try and do a reenactment here because I'll probably just get institutionalized. I was going to try and do a reenactment, but I'm not going to look crazy on camera.
The neighbours will phone the police.
Yeah, the most you'll get from me is "It's me, Billy." That's about
good. That's really good.
Well, I don't want to sound sadistic or anything, but I watched this film with my younger brother, and I am going to sound sadistic, but I actually told him we had someone up in our attic.
Oh boy!
He didn't sleep for a couple of days.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I didn't keep it going for too long or whatever. But no, I think Black Christmas, you know, as I've said before, it's one of my favourite 70s horror films. It's one of my favourite, if classified as a slasher film, which I think it very much kind of is. It's one of my favourite films of the subgenre.
Mine too.
I think it's a film that still manages to be, you know, effectively creepy now.
I think.
And
I think at the beginning, I think it had a cult following, but I think it's one of those films that have, you know, over time, people have, you know, come to reappraise it and realise, you know, this is quite some film, and give it the recognition that it deserves.
Yeah, there is actually a novelization of it that was released in, I believe, 76, which I've never read, which apparently expands on some of the characters and expands on some of the story. Have you ever read it?
No, I have seen it on eBay at quite a price.
I was just about to say it is actually quite damn pricey.
Yeah.
It is
Extremely.
expensive, yeah. There is actually a book coming out, I believe, early next year. A Black Christmas book, kind of a guide on Black Christmas, interviews
Oh,
behind the
wow.
scenes. Yeah, that's
That's a
when you.
must buy.
Yeah, that's when you know. Hang on, this is a little bigger than what we thought, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Black
That,
Christmas. I never thought Black Christmas would get a full dedicated book to it. Halloween,
no,
yeah.
no,
Friday the 13th, yeah. Black Christmas is getting one.
yeah. I think that's come about to, over the years, the anniversary DVD editions, before Blu-ray, because they had a lot of featurettes on it, the making of, trailers, filmographies, everything else. So it's, come to people's attention now.
Yeah.
And I think it was only a matter of time, but I'm glad to hear that. I never knew that, Barry.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
coming
good.
out early next year. I'm gonna buy it. I love the film's tagline as well, which is if this film doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
Right, yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's
good.
cracking.
That is a good
Yeah.
tagline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, regarding the film as well, we never obviously got a sequel or anything like that, not an official sequel and whatever. I know there were plans to. Going into the 2000s, there were actually plans, there were talks of developing a sequel to Black Christmas. Now, in your opinion, would a sequel to it possibly lessen the impact of the first film?
I think so, yes. No, I think leave as it is. I think that is a big problem nowadays. They've got to sequelize things, and it dilutes the tension of the original and the impact of it. I would say most significantly. Just leave it as it is. Because it's done its job, it scared you, you don't know who it was. You need to live with that now in your imagination that you don't know who that guy was.
Yeah.
That's enough. That is enough,
Yeah.
Don't ruin it.
Yeah, I agree. The problem is, wherever there's money to be made, studios follow money, and at the end of the day, the original film doesn't cease to exist if there is a sequel.
No.
But it's like you said, it's like with that, a Black Christmas, that air of mystique that it has, and you don't know the story, and they're guaranteed if we got the sequel, it'd be like the prequel. Sorry, not the prequel, the remake. We'd find out everything.
Yeah.
And
I do. I mean, I think it undermines, the fear and the chilling aspect of the first one, and it maybe actually impacts on the actual killer itself too, because you've only got to look at the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and the way Freddy Krueger develops. He becomes like a stand-up comedian by the time we've reached part 3.
Yeah,
and I love part 3. I think part 3 is great. It's got some great ideas, but later on in the series, you loses a lot of the.
It becomes a Looney Tunes character, doesn't he?
Yeah, and you don't take him that seriously. It becomes less frightening.
Yeah.
You have to go back to the first film or the New Nightmare.
Yeah.
I think is an excellent film. I think that's one of your favourites too.
I love Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Yeah. Freddy Krueger became, he became the selling point for the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Freddy Mania was running riot in the mid to late 80s, and it's I kind of get it. I get it. A film makes money, fans like it. Tell you what, we'll do a sequel. But it gets to the point where they don't know where to stop.
That's a problem. And then when you hear, like, maybe a 4-year-old in the street, "Oh, Mum, I'm going to dress up as Freddy Krueger this year for Halloween," and they go into like a shop like Pound World and buy the glove, with the plastic blades. You don't hear them saying they're going to be Billy out of Black Christmas.
Yeah.
So That's
Yeah.
it. Enough said.
Yeah, you wouldn't get anyone cosplaying as Billy because how? Yeah, you wouldn't.
You
I
know.
mean, it's yeah. I mean, I think Black Christmas is a perfectly good film that stands on its own two legs. You know,
Yeah, I think so.
it's not handcuffed to anything else. It's not a franchise. Well, I know you've had a remake and whatever, but no sequels or anything and that. And there's a few slasher films, a little later going into the early 80s that don't have sequels. Things like My Bloody Valentine and The Burning and Terror Train. I think they're all good slasher films that stand on their own 2 feet as
They
well. No
are. Yes.
sequels. Terror Train's one of my personal favourites. I do really like Terror Train.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah, so that's one we'll have to do. Future Terror
Yeah,
Train.
that's Canadian as well, I think, isn't it?
It is. It is
Yeah,
Canadian.
yeah.
Because I think they were generally cheaper to film there, weren't they?
Yeah.
I know the house, obviously, like I say, it was filmed in Canada. For what I also know as well, nearly forgot, is that most of the snow outside was actually fake. Believe it or not, they had barely any snow during the winter period when they were filming, so they actually had to, yeah,
That's typical, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, typical. So they
Oh.
actually had fake snow. But one of the scenes that was really hard for them to film was the scene in which they're all out there during, I think it's the search party, and they find the dead girl.
Ah.
It was absolutely freezing. I can't remember what the temperature was now, but I can imagine Canada has some really cruel winters.
Oh yes, they do. They do. Definitely do.
Um,
Yeah, I think Bob, can't remember if it was Bob Clark that mentioned that in the commentary or whether it was in a
okay.
book, but I remember them saying that was a tough night
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah. Terror Train, not too much off topic. That was a challenge. Obviously, if we talk about Terror Train being filmed on a train,
Oh, yeah.
on a
Yeah.
very confined setting. They were very restricted and limited as to where they could move, etc. So no, Black Christmas, great film. It's a tough one because I've had people ask me, what do I prefer, Halloween or Black Christmas? It's do you know, I think from a technical perspective, purely technical, Halloween.
Yeah.
But as a scare factor, Black Christmas.
Yeah.
I think technically speaking, John Carpenter made a really well-made film with the budget that he had. But Black Christmas is a film that does scare me more. I'll be honest, I've said this before. Halloween, I love it. Halloween is a film that personally never truly scared me.
No, it didn't scare me at all. I don't know what I was expecting, but I enjoyed it, and it was almost like a kind of ghost train ride that you thought, oh, let's do it again. That was fun.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that kind of, you didn't think about it. Well, I didn't think about it afterwards when I was lying in bed at night in the dark and go, oh, that was quite intense.
Yeah.
But Black Christmas did that.
Do you know what I find scarier about Black Christmas? For me personally, right, Michael Myers, my favourite horror movie villain, still is. The strong, he's the strong, silent type, if you will. Doesn't say a word, wears a mask. But what I find far scarier is that whole multiple personality thing. The crazed, like the completely unpredictable, the unpredictability of it and all that. Multiple personality disorder and all that is something I always find very disturbing, very scary in horror. I find it a very scary theme. There's quite a few films I could mention. I find that scarier than just a guy not speaking wearing a mask. Me personally, it feels more real to me.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Session 9, released in 2001. Good film. That film deals with multiple personality disorder. They find a videotape, they listen to the recordings on the tape, and it's this woman who has these multiple personalities and actually speaking in different voices. That kind of thing unnerves me. That kind of thing creeps me out.
Oh, me too. Me too. Yeah, it's a very scary film. That actually really disturbing.
Yeah, it's quite underrated, isn't it? It's quite often overlooked.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that film's existence at all.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it to people and they go, never. You know, it's passed a lot of people by.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very good film.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much. We've been going for nearly an hour, I think.
Oh,
or yeah,
right.
almost.
Oh, it's just dawned on me. His name was Nash, I think.
It was Nash. Well done.
Sergeant,
Yes, yes,
yes.
it was. If I
It
could
just
give you
came
a
to
pat on
me.
the back, man, I would. There's
Oh,
going to be a medal in the post for you.
oh, thank you. Blue Peter badge.
Yeah, yeah. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was Nash,
Nash.
and I'm
Don't know where
surprised.
that came from.
Hey.
I don't know where that came from. It just popped into my head there.
Yeah, it is Nash, because he talks about, I'm going to put the gun up there side. Do you remember that guy walks in? He says, I'm going to put the gun up there. Was it or something sideways?
Oh, that's right. I can't remember the line, but yeah,
I think the
was
guy
something.
was getting done for like trespassing or something. He was walking onto his property, and much to the guy's angst. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. We've covered so much regarding this film. Needless to say, it's a film that we both love, and I'm kind of in the mood possibly for watching it tonight, actually, talking about it.
Yes, me too. And I hope everyone watching this is going to check it out as well if they haven't already done so.
I'd like to think they have, because we've spoiled the whole frigging film. I should have prefaced it and said, look, we've got spoilers. Just
spoiler alert.
One or two. But yeah, cheers, man. Cheers for coming on.
That's great. And thank you for having me, Barry. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
No problem, man. We'll cover another film soon. We might have Joseph with us as well. We'll decide on a movie, and yeah, a film that we obviously both love, and that. And yeah, so thanks a lot to everyone that watched, and we'll be back again soon to haunt you and torment you. And if you've liked what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe. All support's massively appreciated. And goodbye for now.
Goodbye, guys.